we should be building the Evergreen Line.
Yeah.
That wasn't very enthusiastic, Peter. I think we just saved ourselves $1.2 billion. Let me ask that question again. Do you still think we should build the Evergreen Line? It's interesting. As soon as you say you're going to do something, people aren't nearly as enthusiastic about it. And here's maybe one of the reasons why. We all have to pay for it. You know, it's easy to say at local government, or the province, or the federal government, we'd like this, we'd like that. Taxpayers are pretty fast to tell us what additional services they want. But you know what, I don't know how many of you know this, but over the last year, there's been an ongoing discussion amongst taxpayers about a thing called the HST. And one of the things that's really important, I think, as we enter that discussion is to say, you know, we're glad to have the taxpayers make these decisions. But let's recognize, if you want more health care, we have to find a way to pay for it. If you want more transportation infrastructure, we have to find a way to pay for it. If we want more education services, we have to find a way to pay for it. And I'll tell you this, I am very acutely aware of this from my experience in government. There is no such thing as government money. It is only your money. And the challenge that we've accepted, all of us as mayor and the Mayor's Council and all of us at the province, is to say, how do we make sure we make the best decisions, give you the best possible value, and deliver the best framework for the future that maintains our livable communities throughout this region and throughout our province. And I want to take a moment to recognize the work that both Peter and Minister Shirley Bond have done in bringing us all together around this memorandum of understanding. Because I know this, and I know lots of the mayors and the Mayor Council, they want to have the best transit system going. So do I. They want to make sure that you can get to where you work and take care of your families as much as you can and have those choices, and break down that gridlock that we've had in the Lower Mainland. So do I. That's why we are investing more in transportation infrastructure than has been invested in this province in history right now. We just were at the Pitt River Bridge, opened it up. You know, the main thing I hear about the Pitt River Bridge, not just that it was on time and delivered early and all those things, I hear that because I keep on telling myself that. But I also hear this. This is what you really hear. You hear from families, they get to be together more often. You hear from communities that they're connected. You hear from the small businesses and the goods movement people, the transportation network, that we're making it better. We're eliminating the $1.5 billion of congestion costs that we impose on our economy. One step at a time. You can't do it all at once. But the Golden Ears Bridge, the Pitt River Bridge, the Newport Man expansion in that bridge, the Canada Line, and the Evergreen Line, and an expanded transit service, and expanded cycling services, and cities that are designed for people to be able to walk as opposed to get in their car to get to where they need to go. All of that is building smart cities for the 21st century. And if we're going to be smart, and if we're going to exceed expectations, we have to know this. This is a partnership. When I tell you we're building the Evergreen Line, I want you to know this, we are. I went to the Prime Minister and I said, Prime Minister, this is the #1 transportation priority for the region. And we need your support to do that. So while it's a $1.2 billion project, the federal government, you should know this, your federal government, the Prime Minister, James Moore, Randy Camp, $417 million have been committed to the Evergreen Line. The province, when I was, we've heard about 1999 and the establishment of TransLink. The province at that time, I was in opposition. And the province, we said there's $170 million for the Evergreen Line. We were told this was a #1 priority. We increased our contribution to $400 million. And we've got more to find as we move forward to close the gap on that $1.2 billion. But I can tell you, I embrace the Mayor's work to say, how do we get this done? What's the supplement we have to look at before the end of this year? Because we're already out with requests for qualifications. We've actually had 7 very good groups come forward and say that they're ready to help us create the Evergreen Line. We will be going forward with the request for proposal. We'll probably end up with maybe 3 groups that will be there for the request for proposal. We intend to start building the Evergreen Line in 2014. We intend to do it professionally. We intend to provide cost-effective service, and we intend to work with TransLink and the Mayor's Council to make sure that that's not the end of transit investment, but we have long-term sustainable funding that allows for increased transit investment as we go forward, because it is a key, as was said before, to livable, healthy communities where all of us can take pride in the communities we build. We have shared objectives. We have a shared goal. We want to be the most livable, cleanest, healthiest community in the world to live in. And you'd be surprised how far down that road we've come. But there's a journey to go, there's a distance to go before we complete it. And I believe if we work together, we will get there. So I welcome this opportunity, and I welcome the opportunity to engage the public in this discussion. As you know, over the last year, we've had a lot of discussions with the public about how we implemented the HST, and frankly, we didn't do a very good job with that. We did a bad job with it, just to put it on the table. But we didn't do a bad job with it because it was a bad decision. We just did a bad job with it. I still believe it's the right decision. When I talk to Bill Dick, and he tells me that when he goes out and buys a $400,000 or a $500,000 truck for his business, he's saving himself $24,000 to $35,000, and as Bill said to me, you know what that is? That's one job in my business. And that happens not just in transportation, it happens in forestry, it happens in energy, it happens in mining, it happens in agriculture. There's $150 million of savings across the economy because we have one value-added system as opposed to two. We save $30 million in the provincial government. But here's what's really important about at least the lesson that I've learned. Two really critical lessons. The first one is this. People want to be included. They want to be part of the decision, and you and all British Columbians will be part of that decision next September the 24th. And as you're part of that decision, you get to be something that probably members of the chamber have wanted to be for some time. You get to be finance minister for one day. And when you're finance minister, you will make the choice. Do you want to maintain what we've got, or do you want to go back to where we were? And I think it will be a really interesting discussion because it is your choice. We will be guided by whatever 51% of the public says. And here's the things that we have to think about. What are the consequences of bringing it back? Who does it have an impact on? Can we think about the whole province? I think everyone should think about themselves and their families and their jobs. All of those issues are things that people are going to have to talk about, and I know the chamber has been a very active player in this. And I can tell you that we will continue to provide the public with all the information they need. And as we move forward on dealing with long-term sustainable transit, I think we should learn that lesson and make sure the public is included in these discussions. And I don't want to pretend that there's a lot of money in the provincial coffers. And I know there's not a lot of money in the local coffers. And I know the federal government's running a massive deficit right now. That's all your money. That's all our mutual obligation. And when I've got a $1.7 billion deficit, the federal government's got a $50 billion deficit, that's all costs that we're imposing on future generations. So I think to engage people in an honest, open discussion about how we can build and create better cities and how we fund it with their money is a very critically important discussion for having. I'm looking forward to having that discussion. And I hope that everyone here and across the region will engage in that discussion. Because I'll just say this as I touch base on this, because there's one more message from the HST. The really important thing to remember is every community has way more projects that they would love to get done than we have resources to fund them. And so how do we challenge ourselves to stand and look at the whole region? Because I can tell you this, there is no independent city in the region. What they decide to do in Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam has an impact on Surrey and Vancouver and Delta. What they decide to do in West Vancouver and North Vancouver has an impact on the rest of the region. So how do we get above this and say what's best for everyone in the region, and how do we make those choices? At the end of the day, we will have to make choices, and I know, working with the Mayor's Council, working with the public, working with the province,